Okay, good evening, everybody. It's Monday night. I want to remind everybody before we start the Mitzvah Shem next Monday night is Gimel Tammuz. So there's Fabrangans all over the city. So there's not going to be a Zoom class next Monday night. But this Wednesday there is, next Wednesday there is, but next Monday night there won't be. Okay, this week is Parsha's Korach, which is an interesting story. It's a little disheartening. But just to give an introduction to the story to understand what's happening over here. Moshe Rabbeinu was told by Hashem who should be whom. Okay, now, Korach was upset that he was overlooked to another brother, a cousin of Moshe Rabbeinu. So Korach got angry at Moshe Rabbeinu. He thought Moshe Rabbeinu did it on his own. And he was saying that Moshe Rabbeinu took, the leadership, and he gave Aaron the Kohen, and Elazar was the head of Shevet Levi. It's all in the family. And then there was another person that it says, another person he took, Ammon was the firstborn, and he said, instead of taking me, who was the second child, he took the leader, the third child. Whatever, he was very upset. So the Gemara tells a story like this. The Medrash tells a story. Moshe Rabbeinu, Korach got upset. So what did he do? He said that the pasuk says again. He told Moshe Rabbeinu, Kol ha'edo kulam kadeshim. Everybody's holy, and God is amongst everybody. Madua tisnasu al kol Hashem. Why are you making yourself holier than anybody else? Why everybody's holy? All the Jews are holy. Why do you have to make yourself holy? Okay. So what did he do? The Medrash says he did two things. First, he took talis, talis that has tchelis. The whole talis was made from the blue wool. Now, in biblical times, you see it today. Some people have it also. That when you had a talis, a woolen talis, on the corners of the tzitzis, one string had to be from tchelis. Tchelis was a fish called chalozin that had a certain fish, and we don't have it today. And you had to dye from that fish, and you dye one of the strings of the talis. And that basically, together with the white tzitzis, cover the garment's obligation of having tzitzis. So he took a garment that was, the whole garment was tchelis. The whole garment was full of this blue wool. And he came to Moshe Rabbeinu and said, Moshe Rabbeinu, does this garment need tzitzis or not? So Moshe Rabbeinu said, yes, it does. You still need the strings on the corner. So Korach started laughing at Moshe Rabbeinu. He said, if one strand on the tzitzis is good for the whole garment, so if the whole garment is tcheles, if the whole garment is that, for sure you don't need tzitzis. What did Korach want to bring out by this? Korach thought Moshe Rabbeinu is going to say it doesn't need. Korach was a very smart man. Korach knew how to learn. He wasn't, even though we make him like a wicked person, Korach was an extremely great person. He just messed up. Korach was brilliant. The Gemara says, Rashi brings it down. Korach was learned. Korach was great. He fought against Moshe Rabbeinu. So he thought for sure that Moshe Rabbeinu was going to say that a talis, that the whole talis is made out of tchelis, does not need tzitzis. What did he want to bring out? If everybody is holy, the whole nation is tchelis, why do you need individual leaders? So he started mocking Moshe Rabbeinu. Then he came with another question. We know that on a house, on the doorpost of a house, you need to put a mezuzah. He says, Bayis Moli Sfarim, if a house is full of sefer potatoes, do you need a mezuzah? Again, he thought Moshe Rabbeinu was going to say no. If the whole house is full of mezuzah, full of Sfarim that has the mezuzah in it, so to speak, why do you need to have the mezuzahs on the door? But Moshe Rabbeinu says it doesn't need. So what he did, he started mocking Moshe Rabbeinu publicly. He gathered 250 leaders. He gathered a lot of people. He started mocking Moshe Rabbeinu. So the question is, why Taka the Moshe Rabbeinu say it? There's a logic. Logically, if the whole garment is tcheles, if the whole garment is this wool that is the color of tcheles, why do you really need tzitzis on it? If the house is full of svarim, full of mezuzahs, so to speak, why do you have to put a mezuzah on the doorpost? So this is where Korach's mistake was. Even though everybody's holy, even though there's kedusha, and everybody is holy, everybody is tcheles, everybody is a house full of svarim. Nevertheless, Hashem wants that this kedusha should not remain inside, but it should influence the outside. Where do you put a mezuzah? A mezuzah is on the outside of the door. That's where a mezuzah is. Where is the tzitzis? Outside the garment. Especially when people wear the tzitzis outside. So what Hashem wants is like this. Let me explain to you what Korach wanted and what his mistake was. Korach wanted to be a Kohen Gadol. He said, I want to be a Kohen Gadol. Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, by the way, I also want to be a Kohen Gadol, but I'm not. Why? Because Hashem said so. Which means as follows. Korach wanted, what type of kahuna, what type of priesthood did Korach want? Korach wanted a priesthood that there's a big separation between holiness and evil. That there's a separation between kedusha and world. It shouldn't be joining together. In fact, in the Targum, and this first part of Yikach Korach simply means Korach took. Targum Onkel says his paleg Korach. Korach made a split. Palg means half. It's a split. Korach made a split. And in Chassidic Sfarim it says, what does that mean? You know, on the second day of creation, Hashem created the heaven. The Rakia. What was the purpose of the Rakia? To split the higher waters and the lower waters. That's what the pasuk says. There was water all over the place. On the second day of creation, Hashem created the heaven to separate between the higher waters and the lower waters. That is called, and therefore it doesn't say kitov on the second day. If you look in Chumash, every day Hashem said kitov. It was good. Second day Hashem doesn't say it's kitov. It was good. Tuesday he said it twice. Why didn't God say on the second day it's good? So according to Chassidus and Kabbalah, the explanation is when there's a separation, when there's a machlekes, when there's an argument, when there's a fight, it can't be good. In fact, in Pirkei Avos, when it wants to give an analogy of a fight which is not holy, a fight which is not good, they give the analogy of Korach and his people. Korach wanted, it was a holy thing that he wanted, but it was very wrong. Korach wanted that there should be a kahuna, that is holiness, and world is world. There shouldn't be. This Palu Korach made a split like on the heavens. That the higher waters is spiritual, the lower waters represents the physical. Make a split and a separation between them. And that's what Korach wanted to do. He wanted to make a new style Yiddishkeit. And by the way, what did Korach want? He wanted, it says in Kabbalah, and again, he wasn't this bad guy. He wanted to be like when Mashiach comes. Mashiach comes, the Levium are going to be Kohanim. Korach wanted to be a Kohen. He said, why do we have to live now? Like now, let's live like a Mashiach's era. In Mashiach's era, the Arizal writes that Levium are going to be Kohanim. So Korach said, I'm a Levi, I want to be a Kohen, like a Mashiach time. The answer is it's not Mashiach's time yet. So what did Korach want? Korach wanted to make a machlekes, a separation. That's what machlekes, by the way, means. A separation between spiritual and physical. And that was the problem of Korach. Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, the whole purpose of Torah is lases sholem ba'olam, to make peace in the world. What does it mean, making peace in the world? We've learned in the past. If there's one person, you can't say he's at peace because there's nobody to fight with. Two people, as we say in davening, shnei chsuvim hamachishim zeh ezeh, two people that are fighting with each other. Until the third person comes and makes peace between the two. What Hashem wanted was what Moshe Rabbeinu wanted. Hashem said, you can't have a kahuna, you can't have a priesthood that is separated, ghettoed away from the rest of the world. That's not what it's all about. Torah was given to make shalom ba'olam, to make peace in the world. What does it mean? Peace between whom and whom? Who and who is making peace? So the explanation is like we learned. The heavens before Matan Torah belonged to God. The earth he gave to people. In other words, spiritual is spiritual, physical is physical. And what did Hashem want? It should be a joint effort. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu said. And that's what Korach's mistake was. And it's interesting. If you look in the Chumash, Korach, the fight of Korach was right after the story of the spies. Last week, we read the story of the spies. And after the spy story was over, now we come to a new thing of Korach. So it says in Svarim, what happened? Why did Korach do it right after the Meraglim? He says, Korach, again, he was a brilliant man. The Meraglim, remember we learned, they said, we don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because once we're in Eretz Yisrael, we're going to have to work, and we're going to have to deal with the world. We're going to have to deal with the world. We don't want to deal with the world. We want to be spiritual. We want to stay in the desert. We had the mun, we had the well, we had the clouds. We don't want to be involved in the physical world. Action is not important. What's important? Thought and speech. Learning, meditating, davening, speak, that's important. Action, we don't want. But that was the sin of the Meraglim. What did Moshe Rabbeinu, why did Hashem get angry? The Meraglim had good intent. But you know what they say in English? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. What happened? That's not what Hashem wants. Hashem wants action. Hashem wants action. It has to be an action mode. You can't be in a desert where there's thought and speech, where you can meditate and you can learn Torah all day. Hashem says we need the third garment, action. So what did the Meraglim accomplish? The story of the Meraglim, that action is important. And now comes along Korach and says to Moshe Rabbeinu, if action is what really matters, if action is what matters, so then why? Then we're all equal. Moshe Rabbeinu, you're putting on tefillin, action is not any different than the lowest Jew. Now that you're telling me action is equal, so now Korach comes along to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, Kol ha'eder kulam kadeshim. They're all holy, meaning action is what matters. Action, we all do the same deeds. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't put on tefillin differently than we do. His intent might be different, but not the action. If action is all equal, so why now are you saying that you're holy? That was Korach Taina. Hashem answered him that even in action, there has to be variations. There has to be Kohanim, there has to be Leviim, there has to be Yisraelim. That's the way Hashem wants it set up. There has to be different levels of Jews. Yes, in action, everybody's the same. But that doesn't mean that all Jews are the same avodah, the same job. There's a job Kohanim need to do, there's a job Leviim need to do, and there's a job the Yisraelim need to do. And everybody needs to do their own job. And therefore, there must be separations amongst the Jews. contrary to what Korach wanted. Okay, now, there's an interesting story in the Gemara Sanhedrin over here. What got Korach into this fight, by the way? What got Korach into this fight? So the Gemara says like this. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says an interesting story. There was a mitzvah earlier in the Parsha, or in the earlier Parshias. Moshe Rabbeinu was told by Hashem, Kachas HaLeviim, okay, take all the Leviim, Ve'vidu sard al kol bisaram, take a razor as a one-time deal, because otherwise you're not allowed to do this. It's a one-time deal. I'll explain to you why in a second. There's a one-time deal. Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, take all the Leviim, ve'viu sard al kol bisaram. Take a razor and shave the hair from their entire body, from head to toe. There was a one-time mitzvah. Okay? They had Moshe Rabbeinu had to shave the hair, and Moshe Rabbeinu also did it. He was also a lady. Mrs. Korach, whatever her name was, didn't like the way her husband looked with a bald body. So she instigated Korach to go fight Moshe Rabbeinu. But there was another guy involved over here. It says, who did Korach take? Korach took Dasan and Abiram, then the national troublemakers who happened to be brothers. Plus it said Bnei Eliyav, they were the sons of Eliyav. Doesn't vary with the trouble with the Manu and the Moshe Rabbeinu, the snitched on Moshe Rabbeinu, the biggest troublemakers. And who did they take? Another guy, Ein ben Pelas. This guy, Ein ben Pelas, from the tribe of Reuven. He also got involved in the Machlekes. So what happens? The Gemara said a very interesting story. His wife told him, Ein ben Pelas, his wife said to him, you know you're an idiot. You're a fool. He said, you're going to be a nobody anyway. If Moshe Rabbeinu's the head, you're a nothing. If Korach's the head, you're a nothing. Why are you getting involved in this fight? So tell me. She said to her husband, why are you getting involved in this fight? What are you going to gain by it? So he says to his wife, I don't know what to do because I committed myself. They're going to come get me. So Mrs. Ein ben Pelas said, leave it to me. She got her husband drunk. This is what the Gemara says. She got her husband drunk. And he fell asleep. Korach's guys came to get him, for the party, for the fight party. And she came to the door and she uncovered her hair, which in that time was complete nakedness. And they all ran away. And Ein ben Pelas, the Gemara says, slept through the entire incident of Korach with the earth opening up, and she saved her husband. So the Gemara says, Mrs. Korach got him in the fight, and Ein ben Pelas, his wife, got him out of the fight. And she saved her husband's life, because he would have been killed with everybody else. And the Gemara says about Ein ben Pelas' wife, which Shlomo Melech says in the Pasuk, Chachmas Nashim Bansabayis. The wisdom of women build the house. Builds the house, her house. So it's interesting. And the Rebbe spoke about this many times when he spoke this week. This time of year, the Rebbe will speak to the graduates of Beis Rivka and the counselors going to camp. And the Rebbe many times mentioned this story in the Korach that applies to women. You see the power of a Jewish woman. She can either destroy it or she can build it. And Mrs. Korach destroyed, and Ein ben Pelas, his wife, actually saved him. Now Rashi says, why did Korach do such a foolish thing? You don't start up with Moshe Rabbeinu. I mean, they knew who Moshe Rabbeinu was. What do you see starting up with Moshe Rabbeinu? So Rashi calls from the Medrash a remarkable thing. Korach was this great person who saw that Shmuel Hanavi, Shmuel Hanavi was going to be a descendant of Korach. We say in Friday night davening Moshe v'Aaron b'Chayanav, Moshe and Aaron in the Kuna, u'Shmuel b'Kardi Shmei. They put Moshe and Aaron together, and Shmuel calling the name of God. So the Medrash says that Shmuel was equal to Moshe and Aaron together. That's how great Shmuel was. Shmuel Hanavi, the prophet Shmuel, was as great as Moshe and Aaron together. So Korach said to himself, how can anything go wrong with me? I see that I'm going to have a great grandson by the name of Shmuel Hanavi. How can anything go bad? The Medrash said, Rashi brings it down the Medrash. And Rashi quotes the Medrash that says his mistake was his children did tshuva. B'nei Korach le'meisu, the pasuk says in this week's parsha. B'nei Korach le'meisu, they didn't die. Why? Because they did tshuva. And they screamed out, Moshe emes v'teirasi emes. Moshe is true and his Torah is true. So this was Korach's mistake. Korach's mistake was that he didn't realize he was going to die, but his kids are going to stay alive. They're going to do tshuva. And this explains another remarkable question seemingly over here. And that is, how do you name a Parsha Korach? Korach was a Russian. You have a similar question later on in Chumash in a few Parshas from now. There's a Parsha called Balak. Also a wicked king that hired Bilam to come and curse the Jews. Why does it Mele Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu, even though then he was a guy, but he converted, he was Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law, he was a great man, his descendants taught Torah all over the place. Korach, Balak, how do you name a Parsha with these even seemingly evil people? Balak is even worse, it's not for now, because he's a guy. Korach was a Jew. The answer is because the whole, and we're going to explain now a beautiful thing with the letters of Korach. Korach, his intention was good. But when good becomes bad, the ultimate purpose is to transform the bad into good. And that's what I'm going to explain now. The Chassidus explains, Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, in Shayach Amunah, the name of a person brings out the essence of the thing. The life of any object is the name Torah calls it. If you look at the letters Korach, it's spelled Kuf, Reish, Ches. 3 letters. It says in Kabbalah as follows. The Gemara says, we say in the Volotzian every day in davening, all the way at the end of a Volotzian, Ki b'yah Hashem tzur ilami. With the Yud K, the Yud and Hey of Hashem's name, he formed the worlds. So the Medrash says, B'yud nivra olam haba. With the letter Yud, God created the world to come. B'Hei, with the letter Hey, nivra olam hazeh, God created this world. Okay? So this world is the letter Hey. What is unique about the letter Hey? The letter Hey is a very holy letter. Now, if you don't picture the letters, which you should be able to, if not, take a consider and you look at the letters and you'll see what I'm talking about. The letter Hey has 3 parts. There's a top line, horizontal line, and a vertical line, and then there's a third line, which is a half a line. Okay? It says in Sfarim, Chassidus, Kabbalah, other Sfarim also, that explain the letters of the Aleph Beis. That refers to thought, speech, and action. The top horizontal line of the Hey represents thought. The right vertical line represents speech. And the third leg, which is a half a leg, the half a line, that represents action. Now you have another letter. That's called ches. The letter ches. Now, what's the letter ches? Also like a hey, except the third leg is connected to the top. Right? It's not a half a line. The third leg is a complete line. So it's a ches. The letter hey represents holiness, and the letter ches represents evil to a certain extent. Where do we see this? The word matzah that we eat on Pesach, represents humility, subservience, bittul. Matzah is spelled mem tzadik hey. Chametz, which represents evil and haughtiness and whatever, that is spelled ches mem tzadik. So the mem tzadik is the same in the word matzah. It's the same in the letter chametz. Mem tzadik, you have in both words. What's the difference between matzah and chametz? Matzah is holy because the hey is a holy letter. Chametz is evil because ches is not a holy letter. Now explain that, God forbid, they're all holy letters, but relatively speaking. Now, you have the letter dalet. What's a hey? The letter hey, by the way, is a dalet. You have a look at a dalet with the third leg. When you write a Sefer Torah, how do you write a hey in a Sefer Torah? You make a dalet, and then you make the third leg. That becomes a hey. What is a letter similar to dalet? The resh. Also, like the dalet, right? What's the difference though in the vision, in the look, in the way it looks? The dalet on the top right has a little bit of an extension when a resh is actually rounded. The resh is rounded. The dalet, if you have a look at the dalet, you draw a line, but it's not rounded on top. There's a little protrusion on the top, like a little dot, yud. Dalet is a holy letter. Resh is not a holy letter. Where do you see this? We say in davening, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Dalet means one God. If you exchange the dalet for a resh, then you got, God forbid, Hashem Acher, another God. Not one God, that's with the dalet. Acher is where resh means other gods. Another interesting connection between the dalet and the resh, by the way. Again, every letter of the Aleph base is so holy. Dalet, the word dalet comes from the word dal, which means poor. The letter resh means poor also. Rosh ein kol. A poor man has nothing. So dalet and a resh look alike. They mean alike. They're both poor. Yet, if you, God forbid, change a resh for a dalet or a dalet for a resh, the Gemara uses the expression, you're going to destroy worlds. Why is that? If God forbid you say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and God forbid you say Hashem Acher, it's terrible. There's a pasuk in Chumash that says, Lo sishtachavel lekel acher. Don't bow down to another God. If you, God forbid, going to say a dalet there, Lo sishtachavel lekel echad, God forbid, it means that don't bow to Hashem. So Chassidus explains like this. Reish and dalet look alike, they mean alike, but they're worlds apart. What is the difference between a dalet and a reish? In the form of the letter. We just mentioned the dalet has a little, on the top right, a little protrusion. The reish is rounded, the dalet has a little bit of a protrusion on top. Now in Hebrew, letters go, you write right to left. Right? Hebrew goes right to left. Which means, what's the different uniqueness of Dalid? There's a little yud before the letter, which represents humility. It's a tiny letter. It's a dot. That represents humility, bittul, subservience. Why is Dalid a holy letter? Because there's a little bit of humility on the top right at the beginning of the letter. So what does this mean? It means like this. Remember we said hey is 3 lines, thought, speech, action. So Dalid is 2 lines, one horizontal, one vertical. So Dalid represents thought and speech of Kedusha. No third leg. It represents a Kedusha. Reish is thought and speech of evil. Again, Reish is again a line on top and a line down, horizontal and vertical line. But the difference is Dalet is holiness, so it becomes a letter of thought speech of Kedusha. Reish is a letter of thought and speech of evil. Okay? Now, what is a kuf? You look in the letter kuf. Kuf is actually a reish, not a dalet. Kuf is a reish with a third line. But what is it? It's not a line that stops at the line. It goes beneath the line. So what is a kuf? A kuf represents thought and speech of evil. The third line we said represents action. But it's action that goes, there's a pasuk that says, Ragleha Yordis Mavis. Its feet go down into death. Like down to hell, so to speak, below the line. So the letter Reish, which is thought and speech of evil, if you make the third leg now to make a kuf, it goes down below the line. That means the action goes down to evil. Because if you think evil and you speak evil, your actions are going to go all the way down into evil. That's the letter kuf. So the letter kuf represents thought, speech, and action of evil. That's the first letter of Korach's name, kuf. What is reish? The second letter of Korach's name. Again, no dalid, just thought and speech without the little yud on top, the little humility. That represents thought and speech of evil. What is ches, the third letter of Korach's name? Ches, like we said, is exactly like a hey, but there's no break between thought, speech to action. It's all connected. In Kedusha, we need to think and speak, but af asisit, there has to be a little break to the action. We have to figure out, take a break and figure out how to do the action. And it doesn't go below the line. So again, ches, because there's no break between thought, speech, and action, so even though it seems to be good, it's a dalid, a ches is also a dalid with the third line, except it connects to the top, which means there's no break between thought, speech, and action. That's also no good in Torah. There has to be a break between thought, speech, and action. So Korach's name itself represents evil within itself. Thought, speech, and action of evil. That's the kuf. The reish represents thought and speech of evil. And again, the ches, even though seemingly looks good, but because there's no break between thought and speech to the action, that's also no good. And that's what letter is Korach fighting? Korach is fighting the letter Hey that Hashem created the world with. And that's why in Korach's name, it's everything but the concept of Hey. A Kuf is when the third leg goes further. The Reish is no bittul, no humility of the first one. And the Ches is, again, there's no difference, there's no separation between thought, speech, and action. So therefore, all these things represent evil. And that's what Korach represented. But again, why is the Parsha called Korach? Because the purpose of a Jew, it's a deep explanation. Thank you very much. It's not mine, and it's not that deep, by the way. We're just talking about letters. So the purpose of the mission of a Jew is to take Korach, which represents thought, speech, and action of evil, and make it into a portion of the Torah. That's the role of the Jew. To transform our thought, speech, and action of evil to make it into Kedusha. That's the role and the function of a Jew. And that's why the Parsha is called Korach. Okay. Next is like this. There's a very interesting thing that we learn in today's Parsha as follows. There's a mitzvah in the Torah. This is also a very remarkable halacha, by the way, but it goes to the essence of the Jew. The pasuk speaks about the mitzvah of separating truma. On chapter Yudches, pasuk 25. Okay, it says you have to separate truma. To separate the portions that you give to the Kohanim. Biblically, one little kernel is good for a whole silo. The rabbis came along and said, if you're a nice guy, you give 1 out of 40. If you're an average guy, you give 1/50th. If you're a mean guy, you give 1/60th. But there's a passage that says like this: Kein torimu gam atem. There's an extra gam. Okay? From here we learn out, the Gemara says, in many, many places, what's the extra word gam atem? It says torimu atem. You should separate truma. What do you mean? Also you? From here we learn out what are the sources of a fundamental aspect in Torah, that I can appoint a shliach, an agent, to do something for me. Because the question is, if I have to do something, how can I appoint a shliach to do it? Without this pasuk, by the way, we wouldn't learn it out. And we learn out from this pasuk, by the way, that when a Jew needs to make a shliach to do something, it could only be a Jew and not a non-Jew, because it says atem. Just like atem, you are Jewish, it has to be a shliach, can only be somebody who's Jewish. Can't be a kid under bar mitzvah, but it has to be, you can make a shliach. And the Gemara says an expression, shliach shel adam k'meiser. The shliach of a person is like the person doing it himself. Where do we find a similar story in Chumash? A guy wants to get married. Yeah, so we know under the chuppah, the chosin and the kala, and the chosin does the kedusha. He gives her a ring. He says, "Areyat mukadeshes to you, consecrated to me with this ring." What happens if the chosin wants to send a proxy, an agent, to do the kedushin for him? He can't travel. The girl's in a different city. Like Avram sent Eliezer to find the shidduch for Yitzchak, and he did kedushin for Yitzchak. So what happens if the guy can't do it? So he makes a shliach, or he wants to, God forbid, send a get, and he can't go. He send a shliach. You have to give the get yourself. The Torah says the nosam beyodu. You have to give the get. You have to do the kedushin. But the Gemara learns out A shliach is like you did it. It's like you do it. Because the shliach, as long as he's listening to the mission he was given, he is the agent of the sender. If he doesn't do it properly, exactly, then it's not good. I'll give you a simple example that the Gemara gives, Rambam gives. A guy wants to send a shliach to do kedushin for a woman. Okay? He says to the shliach, let's say they're in New York. He says to the shliach, here, I want you to go to Los Angeles and do kedushin with Miss So-and-so. Says the girl is in Los Angeles. I want you to do kedushin for the girl in Los Angeles. The girl happened to be in a different city, San Francisco. And he went to San Francisco and did the kedushin with the woman. The din is, it's not a valid kedushin. Why? Because he told him to do it in Los Angeles. He didn't listen to him. He did it in San Francisco. He's not a shliach anymore. It's not a valid kedushin. If the guy says, though, to the guy, listen, I want you to do kedushin with Miss So-and-so. She happens to be in LA. So then he didn't say, I want you to do it in LA. He says, I want you to do kedushin with this woman. She happens to be in LA. So he's telling him where to look for her. Then if the girl is in San Francisco and he does it, it's a valid kedushin. Why? Because he did it the way he was told to do it. But a shliach is a very powerful person. You can send a shliach to do separate truma. Throughout Torah, there are many laws that you can send a shliach to do something, and it's like you yourself did it. Where do we learn it out from? In this week's Parsha. I mean, there's tons of stuff. But the Rebbe always speaks, it's the week of Gimel Tammuz, coming up to Gimel Tammuz. The Rebbe always explains every Jew is a shliach. Shlach, last week's Parsha, shlach. Every Jew is a shliach of Hashem. Shliach, and the Gemara says the expression, shliach shel adam k'maisei, the shliach of the person, the proxy, the agent of the person, is like the person himself. Who is Adam? Adam refers to Hashem. Adam on the throne of Hashem, he's called Adam. A person, every Jew in the world is given a shlichus, a mission from Hashem. Every Jew is God's agent and God's proxy to do what needs to be done in the world. And that every single Jew has that koyach. When you send a shliach to do something, whenever you send a shliach to do something, he has the power of the one that sent it. That's the din. If as long as you do it right, you don't mess it up, you do exactly what he told you to do, you have the power of the sender. And the Rebbe explained there's three categories and whatever. I don't want to elaborate this too. It's complicated, but it's not for now. Which means it's like this. Every Jew in life has a mission from Hashem to accomplish. Every Jew is a shliach. As long as a Jew is doing what they're supposed to be doing, they have the power of Hashem himself to do it. Which means if a Jew will come along and say, I can't do it. It's beyond me. I don't have the power to do it. That's not true. Why isn't it true? Because you are a shliach of Hashem. If Hashem could do it, you have Hashem's powers. Is there anything too difficult for Hashem to do? Is there anything Hashem can't do? If there isn't anything Hashem can't do, then you could do it also. If you don't mess up. Because once you mess up, then you don't have that power anymore of the one that sent it to you. So what does that mean? A shliach, the agent, has to do not what he wants, but what the sender wants. Because once you do what you want instead of the sender, then we just said that you don't have that power anymore because you're not doing as exactly what he tells you to do. But the Rebbe says like this. What's the difference if, like Eliezer, a slave does something for the master or a shliach does something for the master? And this is a very important concept we need to understand in serving Hashem, or a shliach of the Rebbe, whatever it is. But every Jew is a shliach. The Rebbe said countless times, every Jew is a shliach of Hashem to fulfill a mission. Hashem gives us a mission, and Hashem gives us the powers to do the mission. But how to do it, that we have to figure out on our own. An Eved, a slave, is like a goylam. The master told him to do something, he does something. There's a story in the Gemara about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. There was a very wealthy woman, Merces Babayit Bas Baitus, the richest woman in Yerushalayim. A hunger started in Yerushalayim. She told her slave, buy me some fine flour. By the time he got there was no more fine flour. So he came back and he said to her, there's no fine flour, there's only middle grade flour. So she said to him, okay, get the middle grade flour. He went. By the time he got there was no middle grade flour. So he came back and he said, there's no middle grade flour, but there's the cheap, junky flour. She said, go get it. And by the time he got there was also none. And whatever, she tours the whole story in the Gemara. That's an Eved. You don't use your own brains. Any person would have known, okay, there's a hunger, there's no fine flour, at least buy the next one. You'll have what to eat, something to eat. The Rebbe explains the uniqueness of a shliach. The concept of a shliach is he's given a mission, what to do. He's given the power of what to do. But at the same time, the shliach has to use his own brains to figure out not if I could do it, but how am I going to do it? I spoke about the Shabbos and Shul. A Jew has a mission. A Jew is a shliach of Hashem. And we learn out from this week's Korach's Parsha, Kein Torimu Gamata. And the shliach shel Adam Kameis in the highest level means the hand of the shliach is the hand of the sender. Not that I do an action and my action is considered as if the guy did it. One level of the highest level of a shliach, of a proxy agent, is your hand is the master's hand. Therefore, when the master gives you a mission, the meshalech, the sender, gives you a mission to do, you have to do it. He's giving you a mission. You mess up, you don't have the powers of a shliach anymore. Remember that. You don't mess up, you don't do exactly what he told you to do, you do it on your own style, then you lose the power of the sender. But when the sender gives you the power, you can do it. Not if, like the Meraglim said, we don't know if. What we could do is, but we need to figure out ourselves how to do it. And that's what we need to do. And that's the definition of a shliach. Definition of a shliach is that we know what our mission is. We know what needs to be done. But nevertheless, we have the power to do it. But we have to use our own head. One more interesting thing in the Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, Al Teifen El Minchasam. When this whole fight started with Korach and that, Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, Al Teifen El Menchasam. Second. Second. Moshe Rabbeinu saying to Hashem. Okay, anyway, there's a pasuk that says here, Al Teifen El Menchasam. Don't accept their carbon that they daily carbon that they bring. So it says in the Medrash, what did Moshe Rabbeinu say? Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, every Jew, they give a half a shekel. Every Jew has a chelik, a part in all these karbanis, in all the karbanis sibur. Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, I'm asking you, don't accept their carbon. Okay? Don't accept their carbon. Okay, whatever. So it says in the Medrash like this. Every Jew has a chelik, as a part in every carbon. Okay? So Hashem says their part of that carbon, don't accept. Who could do that? Who could say such a statement? Only Moshe Rabbeinu, because like this. You have a carbon seaboard. It's a communal offering. At the same time, everybody has a share in that carbon. So from one side, externally, it's a public carbon. Everybody's a partner in it. Nevertheless, in each one, they have their own share of that carbon. So what did Moshe Rabbeinu say to Hashem? A Nasi, a Moshe Rabbeinu, okay, who knows every single Jew. That's what it says in the Chumash. He's able to go and understand every single Jew on that level. So he can know the general rule, the general Klal Yisrael, and at the same time, he can know every single detail of Jew. Only Moshe Rabbeinu could do that. Moshe Rabbeinu was able to look at the Jewish people. What is a leader? Okay? You look at the whole nation, and simultaneously, it's one nation. Am echad. Ki ish echad b'lev echad. One Jew, one heart, one person. Yet, in that one person, that one nation, every Jew is unique. Think about it. You look at a person, you look at a body, one body, you look at the whole body. But you know how many details, you know how many cells, you know how many DNAs, do you know how many things are in this person's body? So we look at a person, we look at the whole person. Moshe Rabbeinu was able to see Klal Yisrael as a general Klal, a general nation. At the same time, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to see each individual Jew. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, Al Teifen El Menchasam, I don't want you. Please, I'm begging you. Don't accept I don't want them to have the schus. I don't want them to have the merit of the karbanis. And therefore, that's what Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem. One last thing, for 2 minutes, it's late already. When the epidemic started, so Moshe Rabbeinu said to Aaron, right away, go get the potatoes and bring it and separate. They should also bring the potatoes, the evil people. And Aaron brought the potatoes. So by the way, there's one more point of what we spoke before. These leaders, the 250 people of Korach, were brilliant people. The Parsha says, they were leaders of Jewish people. Didn't they know from Nadav and Avihu not to bring potatoes when you're not allowed to? Nadav and Avihu brought the incense when they were not allowed to. They Hashem killed them. Didn't they know already not to do this? But the answer is, again, this is part of their mistake. And Moshe Rabbeinu told them, quick, take the potatoes and stop the epidemic. The people were dying. He said, put the potatoes in the middle and people stopped dying. The people of Korach thought that, yeah, potatoes, if you do it, it could go wrong. But Korach influenced them to such a way that tells them, no, this is all holy. It's all holy. In life, you have sometimes people that want to convince somebody that something is holy. They'll convince you it's holy. And people get swallowed in sucked into it. You can't fight a Moshe Rabbeinu. In fact, in the Pasuk, it says, Ubreker v'yeh at the beginning of the Parsha. It says, Breker v'yeh da Hashem es shalei. Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, listen, Breker in the morning. Now is not time, it's a time of drunkenness. Breker v'yeh da Hashem es shalei. He says, there will come a time that people will see who Moshe Rabbeinu is. There will come a time, Breker. There'll come a morning, there'll come a time that people will see who Moshe Rabbeinu is. Again, it's been a week to Gimel Tammuz. We understand, Breker v'yeh da Hashem es shalei. We see what the Rebbe did in the world and what's lacking from the Rebbe's physically not being here. But this is, so we are the shluchim now. We are the messengers to accomplish this mission of what Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to accomplish, to bring Mashiach. So, okay, we'll stop here. And again, next Monday night, because of Gimel Tammuz, there's no class. And this Wednesday will be a class. Next Wednesday will be a class. Until then, we'll see you, Mitzvah Shem, in a few days on Wednesday. Until then, everybody have a great week. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.